Hello, reader listeners. This is the Deep Dive.
Hello.
We're here to take the key stories from the front pages of the Seoul Economic Daily and really break them down, give you the core information you need, nice and simple.
And today, wow, there's a lot pulling in different directions. It's a real mix.
Definitely. We're seeing some surprisingly strong Q3 growth numbers, which raises questions about interest rates.
Right, but then you immediately see this intense diplomatic pressure from the U.S. on trade.
Exactly. And back home, Seoul apartment rents hitting a 10-year high. That's painful.
It really is. And then looking forward, there's this big push on AI as like a national growth engine discussed right at APEC.
So 4 key areas. Let's dive right into the first one, those economic numbers.
Okay, the macro picture first.
So Q3 GDP, it grew 1.2% compared to the previous quarter.
Which, sounds maybe not huge, but it's the first time we've been out of that near zero range in 6 quarters.
A year and a half, yeah, that's significant.
And what's really interesting, the Bank of Korea, their forecast back in August was only 1.1%.
So we actually beat the BOK's own estimate. Slightly, but still.
Exactly. It suggests maybe a bit more resilience than people thought, but the big question is why? What drove it?
Well, the sources point pretty clearly to consumption. Private consumption was up 1.3%.
Biggest jump in 3 years, apparently.
Wow. Okay, but we need to dig into that, right? Was it just people feeling confident and spending?
Not entirely. Not organic growth in that sense. A huge chunk of that was government support.
Ah, the consumer coupons.
Yes, that 13 trillion won injection. That's a massive stimulus aimed right at getting people to spend.
13 trillion. Okay, but hold on. If government money drove the spending, isn't that just like pulling demand forward?
That's the tension, absolutely.
What happens in Q4 when that effect wears off?
Well, the growth was real for Q3. And you did have some natural recovery, too, like in medical spending as things normalize.
Right.
But yeah, the finance ministry has bumped its annual forecast up to 1% from 0.9%.
And to hit that 1%, Q4 doesn't need to do much, does it?
Pretty much. Anywhere between minus 0.1% and plus B.3% growth in Q4 gets us there. So 1% looks likely now.
Okay, likely, but maybe fragile underneath.
That's a good way to put it, fragile.
So let's connect this to interest rates. This is key for everyone listening. Normally, weak growth means rate cuts are on the table. Does 1.2% growth kill that idea?
It changes the story, not necessarily to hikes, but it probably takes cuts off the table for a while.
So freeze.
That seems to be the thinking. The immediate low growth risk looks less severe now. So the pressure to cut rates, the pressure the BOK might have felt, it eases off.
But why not cut anyway?
Huh.
If growth is still a bit fragile, wouldn't a little nudge help? Especially with inflation seemingly under control.
But that's where Korea's specific situation comes in. Household debt.
Always comes back to household debt.
It does. Experts like Professor Choi Namjin are warning pretty strongly. Cutting rates now would likely just pump up asset prices.
You mean real estate and stocks again?
Exactly. Without giving much of a boost to the actual productive economy. And given Korea's debt levels.
One of the highest household debt to GDP ratios out there.
Right. The BOK is terrified of fueling another bubble. Stability is priority number 1.
So even with 1% growth looking possible, the message is, don't expect rate relief anytime soon. Rates stay put.
For a significant period, potentially months. That seems to be the takeaway.
Okay, let's pivot then from internal economics to external pressures. Because even that 1.2% happened under some big geopolitical clouds.
Definitely. Trade, especially with the U.S., we just saw the summit between President Trump and Japan's new PM, Takeichi Sanae.
And that sounded less like a friendly chat and more like laying down the law.
Pretty much. PM Takeichi had hinted during her campaign about wanting to review the U.S.-Japan trade deal.
And Trump's response?
Immediate and firm. He basically said the deal is very fair and it stands. Implement it. Full stop.
Wow. That really sets a tone, doesn't it? They talked about a new golden age for the alliance.
Yeah, but it seems like agreeing on trade was the entry ticket to that golden age.
So what did Japan get out of it strategically? Why agree so quickly?
The big win for Japan was alignment on supply chains, specifically rare earths.
Ah, crucial.
They signed a framework for joint investment in mining and processing rare earths. That's clearly aimed at securing supplies away from China.
So the U.S. is defining the alliance through economic security too, not just defense. Access to critical materials.
Exactly. Rare earths are vital for everything modern, EVs, defense tech.
Okay, that makes sense strategically. But if the U.S. is playing hardball like that with Japan, its #2 ally in Asia,
Yeah.
What does that mean for Korea? Our trade talks are coming up.
It means expect serious pressure. The U.S. has basically set a precedent. They got Japan to fall in line.
So they'll likely come to Seoul with a similar playbook.
Very likely. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent even said, look, there's a framework for the ROK-U.S. deal, but it's still complex, not finalized. That's diplomatic speak for get ready.
If they push hard, where are the likely sticking points for Korea? What might we have to get ground on?
You look at things like auto tariffs, maybe, or non-tariff barriers, regulatory standards for U.S. goods coming into Korea, market access. And given the focus on tech everywhere, probably the things like data rules, intellectual property, especially around AI and advanced manufacturing, these are tough issues for Korea.
Right. The Japan summit basically signals the U.S. wants concrete concessions, not just vague promises.
That seems to be the message. Be prepared.
Okay, so external pressure mounting. Let's bring it back home, because that pressure adds to existing domestic instability. And nowhere is that clearer than in real estate.
Yeah, this is hitting people hard. Seoul apartment monthly rents, Wolse, are at a 10-year high.
10 years, since they started tracking it properly in 2016, basically.
The numbers are pretty stark. Through late October, rents in Seoul are up 7.15% just this year.
Over 7%. And the wider capital area.
Nearly 6%. It's not just a blip, it feels like a structural shift.
So let's clarify Wolse versus Janus for listeners. Janus is the big lump sum deposit, landlord invests it, no monthly rent. Wolse is just standard monthly rent.
Right, and the sources say we're seeing a rapid move away from Janus towards Wolse.
Why? Janus is traditionally seen as cheaper if you can manage the deposit.
Two big reasons, pushing renters towards Wolse. First, it's harder to get the huge loans needed for a Janasi deposit now.
Because of those tighter lending rules we talked about earlier, to control household debt.
Exactly. It all connects. If you can't borrow hundreds of millions of one, Janasi is off the table. Wolse becomes the only option.
Okay, that's one factor. What's the second?
Fear. Just plain fear after all those high-profile Janasi scams.
Right, where people lost their entire deposit, their life savings.
Yeah. So renters are thinking maybe it's worth paying the higher monthly Wolse just for the security, knowing they won't lose everything if the landlord defaults or runs off. Security over cost.
That makes sense, but it's a terrible choice to have to make. And the sources say it gets worse. There's a policy actually shrinking the supply of rentals.
Yes, and this is the really worrying part for the future. The government's 1015 measures.
What do they do?
They were designed to stop speculation by making buyers live in apartments they purchase, often for at least 2 years, a mandatory residency requirement.
So if you buy an apartment, you can't rent it out right away. You have to live there yourself.
That's the rule.
But wait, doesn't that mean fewer apartments are available to rent? You're forcing owners to occupy them instead of letting them out.
Precisely. It's an unintended consequence, perhaps, but it's drastically cutting rental supply.
How drastic.
Since the start of this year, the number of Jeonsi and Wolse listings in Seoul down 14%.
14% fewer places to rent.
Yeah. So you have shrinking supply meeting rising demand as people flee Jeonsi. It's a perfect storm for soaring rents.
And that just guarantees rents keep climbing rapidly. It fundamentally changes things for young families trying to save.
It does. You're paying a premium for housing security that you never get back instead of building equity. It's a major structural issue.
Okay, we've covered short-term growth, debt concerns, trade pressures, the housing crisis. Let's end on the future. Technology. AI.
Right. Because ultimately, tech leadership might be the only way out of these binds. This was a big focus at the APEC CEO Summit in Gyeongju.
PM Kim Min-sup kicked things off talking about global connectivity bridge, business beyond.
Standard summit-themed stuff, needing cooperation to handle global issues, but then the business leaders really sharpened the focus.
Specifically, SK Chairman Che Tae-won. His comments were striking. He wasn't just talking about AI as a product.
No, he framed it as a matter of national survival, almost. He said AI competition isn't just company versus company anymore. It's now a critical national growth engine.
Like oil or semiconductors in the past. A strategic resource.
Exactly, and a source of international competition. It ties directly back to that U.S.-Japan rare earth deal securing strategic resources. AI is now in that category.
And he seemed optimistic about Korea's chances.
Very bullish, actually. He thinks AI will spread and evolve fastest here because of our digital infrastructure and how quickly people adopt tech.
So what's the strategy? How does Korea win this AI race, according to him?
2 things. Technology, self-reliance, and trust-based cooperation.
Okay, unpack that. Self-reliance means?
Building our own capabilities. Foundational AI models, our own chip ecosystem, data centers, reducing dependency on others.
Makes sense, especially with current geopolitics
Yeah.
and the trust-based cooperation.
Partnering with allies, sharing data standards, developing secure global norms for AI, working with countries we trust. Not trying to do it all alone, but securing the core locally.
How does that self-reliance look in practice, given, say, U.S. pressure on tech?
It probably means doubling down on areas where Korea is already strong, like memory chips, advanced logic, making sure our AI runs on hardware made here or by trusted partners.
So it connects hardware strength to software dominance.
Right. Che's point was that AI is so pervasive now, it touches everything. He literally said something like, there is no topic in business other than AI, even down to customs rules.
Wow, it's not just a sector, it's the foundation for everything else.
That's the argument. It's the underlying infrastructure for future commerce and security.
Which frames it perfectly. Winning the AI race isn't just about economic growth, it's about strategic independence in a world of trade pressure and supply chain battles.
Succeed, and Korea becomes indispensable. Fail, and risk becoming dependent. It's a huge challenge.
Okay, so we've covered the surprising GDP figures, the looming rate freeze, the hard line on trade from the U.S., the painful rent crisis, and the high-stakes race for AI dominance.
A complex picture, definitely.
Until now, we've discussed the major economic indicators, diplomacy, real estate, and AI trends.
A lot to think about.
We will return next time with quick news updates.
Look forward to it.
This has been the Deep Dive from the Seoul Economic Daily. Thank you.